Hello everybody, it's Mr. Second Amendment coming at you from this crazy camera angle at my workbench. It's probably about the best I can do in here. But anyway, we're starting off this cool rebuild project. This is the Springfield 1911 rebuild project. Okay, now this is actually my dad's gun. He got this off a really good buddy. And this thing is kind of like it just came out of a time capsule. All right, we're gonna go over some stuff. I'm gonna get a better camera angle on the workbench. All right, but long story short is I'm going to be going through this thing. I'm going to be checking out some springs and pins, looking on the inside, making sure there's nothing spooky going on, and kind of rebuild this just a little bit. Nothing too extreme on this to basically bring it up to speed. All right, you're going to see some stuff here that, well, we're going to talk about it. All right, so this is a pretty cool project. I just wanted to show you what I was going to be doing here on this late 80s, early 90s production Springfield 1911. So let's go ahead, check it out. All right, now we're at the workbench, guys. Got some different stuff I wanted to show you real quick. I got one of my Springfield 1911s here. It's been around. You guys have seen it in the channel quite a bit. And this one we're going to be using for comparison. And there's going to be some features on here versus the old school Springfield that we're trying to revive and kind of modernize a little bit, just bring it back up to speed. It's going to be some comparison pieces here. And we're definitely going to have a discussion of what's going on this gun. But I just wanted to show you real quick some of the stuff I'm going to be using as part of the rebuild. All right, so number one, you probably would want some good material to read from, a guide. All right, this one's Jerry Kuhnhausen's shop manual, also Halleck's 45. That's an old school classic. I got that floating around here somewhere. But I got my parts inspection tab ready to go when I check and I look through 1911s. Here's the thing, guys. All right, 1911s are not like a modern Lego set or something easy just to put together. There's quite a lot of stuff in this gun. The tolerances, depending on what parts we're talking about, between good or unsafe or not good, you know, the tolerances, you got to know what you're dealing with. All right, so as a fun hobby gun, it's cool, but it's definitely a labor of love. And it's not as simple as some of the other modern options. So you really got to read up. And honestly, if you're doing any type of gunsmithing, guys, whether it's hobby gunsmithing or professional, whatever, you're going to start to build up a library. All right, so with the 1911, it's kind of specific. One part from one 1911, hand-fitted and properly effective and within tolerance on one, may not necessarily work if you just randomly try to drop it in. It may not even fit into another 1911. So 1911s, for those that don't know, they're a little bit fussy. It takes a little bit of care. It takes some knowledge on what you're doing here. You know, it's almost like you just wish sometimes that you had something that was just fuss-free and just reliable, no matter what. Excuse me, hold on. I just got to move this over here. Okay, so anyway, I'm just going to show you some of the other things that I got going on. And throughout all the rebuilds and everything I've done over the years, I've just kind of acquired a stockpile of parts. Got some grips here. I might pick some. We're going to get into the gun itself pretty soon here. Got some extra spare parts. All right, just different things that I can use or extra parts that were still serviceable that I've just kind of collected over the years. Just rando parts bags of stuff. But the reason why this is here, I'm just kind of showing you different stuff that you might need. India stones, trigger track stone, different polishing, everything else. And some of the specific tools for 1911s over the years, and props, by the way, if you know what this is and you know what's coming. But, you know, different things I've done over the years just to work on 1911s, and it's been a process, all right, taking some time. So anyway, I'm going to get a better camera angle. We're going to look at the gun itself. We're going to compare it to a more modern option here, and then we're going to see, just totally inspect it, and we're going to see what's going on, what we got to do. All right, guys, let's go ahead and check it out. So I'm just going to leave the more modern one in the foreground. Let's just see what we got. Okay. And it's unloaded. Some of you may notice something interesting about that barrel, but we'll get to that. So what do we have? Well, back in the late 80s, early 90s, the 1911 market in terms of who was making 1911s, how they were offered, what features were standard or available. It was a very different time. All right, so I was sparing you the history lesson. It's kind of cool. Like I said, this is basically like it's coming out of a time capsule from back then, just kind of showing you what dudes were doing to try to make a 1911 a little bit more reliable or a little bit more modernized with some features here. So the first thing you're going to notice is this bicycle tire inner tube that he had here holding down the grip safety. Other guys back in the day, they would pin it or go inside, if you know how it works, and actually deactivate it against the trigger bow, so it would just do whatever, but it doesn't actually function. Or this is more common, dudes would electrical tape or use a rubber band or tire inner tube like this and hold it down, and that way it would deactivate it. This is actually something I do not recommend. I have no problems with the grip safety on the 1911. With a little bit of a caveat, I prefer something like the Ed Brown, where it's got this memory groove speed bump situation. So all you have to do, make sure it's unloaded, okay? So right now it cannot fire until it's in your hand, of course. And that's just kind of a flagship standard 1911 feature. All right, you can modify, and this is just, I'm not recommending any of that, but yeah, you can deactivate it. That's not what I like though. I like having something that has this little bump right here. All right, because the second it touches your hand, that thing is deactivated and it's ready to shoot. Okay, so I would just leave it in place. We have better technology these days where I don't feel like it's this necessity to pin or tape down the grip safety. All right, it's not an Uzi, so let's calm down about it. But at least in my opinion, I would not deactivate it. Instead, I would go towards a grip safety that basically it stays safe until you just touch it and it's ready to go. All right, so the agenda is going to be that we're going to put on a more modernized. I'm actually going to get an Ed Brown, another one here, and just put it on my dad's 1911. But we're going to be doing a modern grip safety, and that's kind of for two reasons. So one, first of all, it's kind of grossing me out. So let me just get this off, and I think, you know what, it'd just be better just to wrangle it off. All right. So now the grip safety is working how it should. All right. So I can see what was going on here, and there's some modern companies that offer it still flat like this, so you really have to get up in there to deactivate the grip safety. So I can kind of see where the struggle was, or still is for some people. But I just prefer having a grip safety. It's got that bump, so it deactivates your good. But the second reason here we're going to be replacing it is you can notice the profile difference. And for those unaware, it's kind of hit or miss, I've noticed. It seems like half and half, but if you don't have a modern beaver tail grip safety, you got more of an old style. This was actually enhanced for the time, believe it or not. But if you got the old school style, at least for my hands, it just starts really just giving me a welt right here. I've noticed guys with bigger hands seem to have a problem with this. Guys with smaller hands, I've noticed, they don't even notice a problem. But my dad is just like me. He's got issues here. As you start shooting it, you're going to definitely feel it's going to let you know what's up. So that's kind of the two-part combo of why the grip safety is going to get upgraded, kind of modernized. We're going to make it a little bit more pleasant to shoot, but also we're going to take advantage of that safety feature, leave it intact, and it's not going to be on our way because it's going to have a it's going to have a speed bump. Okay, something else we're going to notice here is we got a commander style hammer, which back then was all the rage. That's what dudes were doing. I'm actually going to be getting a cylinder and slide ignition kit, and we're just going to replace the hammer entirely. The cylinder and slide ignition kit, you got them in different variations and kinds. I love them because it's just a really quick and easy way to get a reliable, safe, and crisp trigger, depending on what kind of trigger you want to have. Let me grab, let's see, should have had this pre-staged, but let me grab this. This is actually from Ed Brown, and this is the old school way of essentially messing with the angles and sharpening up, making it crisp for your sear, for your hammer hook engagement, if you're trying to actually use the existing hardware and make a good trigger out of it. This is something I would probably not recommend getting into unless you really have some time, do some research, and want to mess around and get good at it, and on a gun that's just a total target pistol. So that's the alternative if you have to use, or you want to use, the existing hammer and sear and all that. But I'm just going to go ahead and replace the sear and hammer with a cylinder and slide. It also comes with a mainspring housing spring. So it's all set up and ready to go. Going back to this, This is actually what we're going to need to grind down strategically the frame right here to accept a modern beaver tail grip safety. I forgot to mention that, but you need to take a little bit of material off and kind of contour and shape it to that frame. And again, kind of moving into the hand fitting process, there's a little bit of material that's going to have to go, and you basically put this through the safety hole on the frame and then use a file, and you just go slow. Then you take material, and it allows you to take, but not take too much. So that's what we're going to be doing on this build. I'm going to be showing you as we do that. Okay, I'm going to put that stuff to the side. Something else we notice is this crazy magazine release. Holy cow. And what's interesting about it is not even set. Okay, everybody wants to have the crazy extendo magazine release. If you're asking me, I think it's a good thing to just keep it stock. All right, we don't want mags just jumping out on us. All right, in this case, we don't want this wheel to come off and then suddenly we just don't even have a mag release stud or whatever we're going to call that. So that's something that's going to get changed out. We're going to go back to the standard. Some guys will disagree on that. That's fine. But if it's going to be, especially carry or defense, I really don't want mags jumping on me or just relying on this to not walk out. It's not even Loctited, which I imagine that would have been something to do. Anyway, let's get back to something I haven't mentioned yet. So what does my dad want to do with this gun? Because that's going to be kind of driving the bus on what are we going to do here. He just wants it for target shooting. There's no carry or self-defensive mindset or hopes involved here. It's just going to be a paper hole puncher, target shooter gun, just for him to have a 1911 finally that he loves just to go shoot and have fun with. So in terms of the sights, what we got now, just some standard. These are actually better than the standard issue, but it still works the same way with this old school tenon sight on how that's actually installed into the slide. So what I'm going to be doing is a fiber optic front sight for my dad with his eyes, so he can see that. And then we're going to be doing an adjustable Bomar rear sight. That, unfortunately, is something I am not set up to do here. So there's a local gunsmith. He's done work for me before. He does good work. And I'm going to have him install the fiber optic front and the Bomar rear sight. And it's actually pretty affordable for him to do that. So that's definitely going to happen. Okay, now we have this full-length guide rod. Holy cow. It never seems to go away, does it? Well, if you love guide rods, I'm sorry. I'm just going to admit the fact that I am not a guide rod guy on a 1911. It's just not my preference. It's not my thing. I have done testing, and I've gone with and without. I've done all kinds of different manufacturers of guide rods in a 1911. I've done my own kind of T&E on it. And my kind of consensus is I just don't like it. As soon as you get dust or anything in there, it starts to get gummy. I'm going to have dudes in the comments fighting me. Go ahead. If you got a legitimate case for the guide rod, go for it. I really don't like it there. I didn't see any accuracy difference. All I saw was it would just gum up and kind of, there's a lot more surface area here. I guess the bearing surface for that spring. And when it gets gummy and sandy, not saying my dad would put it through that, but in some kind of austere conditions, all right, I have noticed that gets gummed up and it kind of ka-chunks. It makes the slide a little sludgy. So I'm generally not the biggest guide rod guy. So that's going to get changed out. We're just going to go back to the standard setup. All right. In terms of the safety, this is just kind of a very standard basic safety. Not bad. It does function. It's good. It's just I'm going to go for something. My dad's huge hands like mine. I'm going to go for something a little bit extended and wide, probably Ed Brown. Honestly, they make a wide and extended tactical safety. And this one's actually a Wilson. It's been getting me by, but I like the shooting method of riding on top of that safety as you shoot. That's going to ensure that when it comes out of the holster, you're never going to be trying to make it shoot and forget that it's on safe if you put that into your muscle memory. So we're going to be doing that just to hook them up with a better safety, a little bit more surface area to hang on to on that thumb. Let's see what else. You guys notice anything else? Props, if you've noticed this already. ejection port. So this is the lowered and flared ejection port that you're seeing everywhere these days, and that's kind of been the standard for years. And in this case, we have just a standard ejection port. That's right, that's how they used to be. So this one's been lowered to allow more clearance for the brass to get out. It has this flare right here, almost kind of like its own deflector. And this is how it used to be. And you can see this is the old barrel. All right, and I currently don't have any plans to lower or flare the ejection port, but it's going to depend on what kind of reliability we're going to be getting. I can tune the extractor and specifically the ejector and make sure that we're getting a good ejection pattern. It's clearing that slide. But you can see the previous owner actually went wild with the Dremel, and sometimes you just got to put the Dremel down, guys. I'm sorry, but you can see what the dudes were doing back then to enhance or do anything to improve reliability. He polished that up and just kind of given the brass, I guess, the best chance possible at ejecting. So I'm actually just going to leave that. I might re-blue it, try to just make that fit in with the parkerizing on the slide and whatnot, but we'll see how we go. It looks like the disconnector was trying to get tightened up in there, a little peening around the hole, so that's kind of interesting. Okay, let's go ahead. Let's take this thing apart. Now, one of the favorite things about the guide rod is it kind of complicates things, doesn't it? A little bit on a gun that already has an interesting disassembly. All right, so of course, making sure it's unloaded. And props if you've already noticed something else about the barrel. We'll get to it. All right, so you got to use your hex or Allen key here. All right, just to loosen it up. And that's step one. All right, now we can just kind of hand unscrew this. All right, you're going to see the guide rod come out. One note while I'm on it, you never just want to, when there's no ammo, there's no magazine, and there's nothing in the gun like this, you never want to let the slide just drop. You never want to do that. All right, you just want to coast that slide forward when there's no ammo cushioning that impact of the slide going home. All right, and that has to do with the sear and the hammer hooks engagement. With enough of that over time, you're going to start to damage that interfacing. All right, so if you have a modern gun, you can do it all day, whatever. But if you have a 1911 and you're at slide lock like this, and you do not have ammunition or magazine in there, you do not just want to sit there and just drop the slide. All right, so we're going to go ahead and coast that slide forward. All right, here's the fun part. Got some stuff under tension here. All right, so I've always been helped by using something like that. All right, let that coast forward. If you don't protect that, that's flying across the room. That's going to hit you in the forehead. It's going to cause problems. All right, that seems like it's kind of tight. So we're just going to let that chill. All right, we're of course going to line up on the takedown notch. Not really a big idiot scratch. Nothing really, so that's not too bad. All right, going to put that down. In this case, we're going to pull this out from the back end. All right, and we're going to set this aside. Now, as a side note, when the slide is off, you never just want to dry fire, let that hammer fly forward, because it's going to be hitting right there, and that was never meant to interface. All right, eventually you're going to start causing damage there. Going to put that down. All right, going to get the bushing out. Some guys, if your bushing is really tight, you're going to hit that barrel length forward. All right, if your bushing is really tight, you can actually pull the barrel on the bushing. All right, either way. Different methods and techniques. All right, so here's what we got. It's good. I don't really see any rust, or I don't see anything immediately spooky that's just jumping out at me right now. Let's see. I always like to check the barrel length on these things because I'm not totally sure. Let's see. Oh. All right, so we got a little bit of a barrel link issue going on here. All right, so your barrel link should not be able to just do that. All right, so that's going to need a little bit of love. We'll just put that aside. But your barrel and barrel link, it should all stay together. It shouldn't just be able to fall out like that. All right, we're going to get this nastiness out of here. Okay, sorry if you love the guide rod. I don't. Guide rod fans, go ahead, hate me up in the comments. Cool. Okay, now we're going to check, see what's going on in here. So we're going to depress the firing pin. Keep it captured because we're under pressure, and I'm sliding off the firing pin stop. All right, and that's really not good. That didn't feel like a lot of That's not a lot of pressure. All right, and this, all right, we got an old school firing pin that's all steel. I can feel that. This spring looks a little bit slack. Oh yeah, firing pin spring, that needs to be replaced. For those who don't know, I'm not trying to go down a rabbit hole here. This is a Series 70, which I do prefer. However, the whole reason for the Series 80 with the firing pin lock or the firing pin safety and all that was because when you have a spring, a firing pin spring that is slack like this, and you got a full weight all steel firing pin as it was originally done, you might have some kind of drop fire where the firing pin, if it hits on the muzzle, the firing pin dips down, hits the primer, and then you got a gun that's going off. All right, in very extreme cases, that could actually happen if you drop it muzzle down and the inertia brings that firing pin down, it hits that primer. So this is the first real safety issue I've seen here, and it's probably okay, but probably is not good enough. So firing pin spring is going to go in the trash pile. And firing pin does look serviceable. I have to measure that up, but it looks like everything's cool here. I don't feel any sharp burrs or anything. Let's go ahead and get that extractor out. What's interesting here is we have a high polish on the back of the extractor. And if I actually had to guess what was going on there, I think he might have taken it out and kind of filed it down so it mates up flush with the back of the slide, or at least mostly flush. And then he had to do something with it. So I think that's what happened. I actually don't prefer to have something like that. A little bit distracting when I'm trying to look at my sights. So, and this is what I was talking about. You can see the extractor on this one is a little bit sticking out. It's not been made flush with the slide, and that's because that's a replacement. This gun is, I've shot so much out of it, I just replace things as I need to and go. As long as it's safe and effective and it's serviceable, I just keep going. It's been refinished 3 times, had 3 different types of sights on it. It's just a beast. So I didn't really care. There was a time when I did, but at this point I'm like, it's just a workhorse. I don't care. But that's probably what he was doing here if I had to guess. So let's go ahead and take out the extractor and just see what's happening here. All right, we got that bend. It looks like it's tuned up a little bit. Now your 1911 extractor should have a little bit of a rainbow kind of bend exactly like this. And we can go ahead and test to see how we're doing. But I'm going to just go ahead and put that back in. And let's actually put the slide back together with this defunct firing pin spring here. Okay. All right. I'm just going to put this back. And you got to do that. There you go. Got to be careful. Thankfully, this firing pin spring is out of spec. Otherwise, that firing pin would have shot really far. And now you got to kind of line up. There you go. Got to kind of line up your extractor to make that work. All right. All right. Got things a little bit disassembled on the more modern 1911. I got them separated so I don't mix it up. All right. So this is how we test the extractor. All right. And this is the old school technique. You typically don't want to have live ammo just chilling. All right. And there's some Smiths that even have a dummy for this. This actually is a live 45. Okay, so what we do is we slide that up in there. All right. And it should have, if you hold it totally flat, it should have this little bit of just kind of limping down, just like you see it there. And if you tap it, it should not come free. And then you need a certain amount of pressure, downward pressure, to free it. All right, so I'm just going off feel right now. I don't have a 1911 extractor push down gauge if one exists. It's just, this is a lot of kind of old voodoo mystery. Okay, you just got to feel if that's enough tension. And it actually feels like the extractor is good. So I think I might end up keeping the extractor. If we do a function check and it's actually firing, everything's working, that extractor feels like it's good. So I may just have to refinish the back here. And then I think I might just do an extra extractor just to set my dad up in case this one fails him. Because I'm not sure if this is what kind of steel that is or what they were doing. If it's late 80s production, that's probably a good extractor. It's probably going to be good. But bevel and polish looks good in there. All right, let's get to the barrel. Some of you may already notice this. Camera angle's not that great. Okay, check that out. So in my left hand is probably what you're used to seeing. If you're really into modern 1911s, this is probably all you're used to seeing. And I'm talking about the throat of this barrel. All right, what I have in my right hand, which came off my dad's 1911, all right, this is the old school barrel throat design. All right, and that's how it was originally done, because we're talking about the original 1911. It was designed for military service. It was designed for the 230 grain FMJ, just ball military ammo. So this is the throat that you would need if you're only going to shoot ball ammo out of this. But if you're shooting hollow points, you may have a hard time. So modern manufacturers for years now, they've been opening up the throat on the barrel to be able to chamber hollow points without issues. Now, ordinarily, if this was going to be for defense or carry, I would look into either getting this opened up or just getting a new barrel and fitting it into the gun. But in this case, because I know all he's going to do is target shoot, I think we're just going to leave this barrel. We're just going to do a polish job on that throat and the feed ramp, and we're going to kind of set him up for success there. And that's not to say you can't shoot hollow points at all. There are some hollow points in 45 ACP where the manufacturers kind of know what's up, and they know that some people might have old throats like this, and they do make their hollow points. Ultimately, you should test your hollow points in your carry gun or defensive gun before you just go out there in the world and carry. But it's a target gun, so I think I'm more inclined to leave this barrel the way it is. And I don't see anything particularly spooky about this barrel. Everything seems good. All right, I'm checking for the fit right now in the bushing. There's a little bit of wiggle, and there kind of seems to be this balance on a 1911 where you've got reliability versus accuracy. In a lot of cases, you got to pick what you want. You want a really reliable one that's got a lot of jiggle and wiggle, and your accuracy is not going to be as good, or do you want something super accurate with a super tight frame and slide and barrel fit and everything? There are some people that can actually smith a 1911 to where you can actually get the best of both worlds, but most production house guns, I've noticed, you pretty much either get one or the other. And that's unfortunately kind of the realities of the modern production methods on a gun that is not very modern. Okay, now let's go ahead and take this apart, check it out, see what's going on. All right, I'm going to do, even though the disconnector and all that stuff is going to get switched out, I do want to do the test here. So I'm going to coast that forward. Now I should be able to, if I hold down the trigger and I push down the disconnector, I'll actually do it with this so you can see, and I push down the disconnector, I should hear a click. Okay, we got a little click. And now, with everything going on, trigger is still held down, I push down the disconnector, I should be able to cock the hammer, and it should stay cocked. All right, and then I should hear that metallic click. All right, so far we're passing safety on that. It's just kind of a side note, even though I know the hammer, the sear, that stuff's all going to get replaced with the cylinder and slide kit. But we're going to go ahead and take this apart. All right, so the big spooky thing I'm wondering about is any rust that might be hiding underneath these Pachmayr grips. Back in the day, dudes, Pachmayr grips were the thing to have, and what's concerning is got this lip here that might interfere with mag changes or stuffing that mag in, getting a full seat. These are the old school packs too. These aren't even like the more modern offering that you would see like on a Marine M45 rebuild. So we gotta, to get the mainspring housing out, we gotta go ahead and take these grips off and see what kind of mysteries are hiding. And make sure you're using a screwdriver that fits the screw good. You know, I've got a good fit in there. You're not torquing the ends, because that's kind of what you're gonna see if you're using the wrong screw. All right. And while I'm doing this, I'm going to go on a little rant that gunsmithing screws and gunsmithing screwdrivers are not the same as what you would find in the hardware section of Depot or Lowe's. All right, and there's actually a different type of grind that you want to have on your screwdriver bits and everything else, but it's just not the same. And if you don't know that, then you risk torquing over, your screws. So you don't want to be using your standard screwdrivers on gun screws. All right, most of the time it is a flathead. Some weirdo stuff's out there, like CZ75 uses a Phillips on the grips from what I remember. but most of the time you're dealing with flat heads. All right, so let's go ahead, get this all taken down. Nothing's fighting me right now. I don't feel any grittiness either, so that's all good signs. And we're just going to put these down. And this is kind of the moment of truth, because when this comes off, we're going to be able to see if there's any rust that's kind of hiding on us. All right. So with this, let's see if it's going to just come off for us. With rubber, we can peel. If this was some old wooden grips or Bakelite grips, I would treat it a little differently. In that case, you can actually use the wooden side of your hammer just to kind of tap them out. But because this is rubber, I can just go ahead and peel it. All right. So far, looks like we're doing okay. All right, that can get spooky sometimes if you don't know what's going on down there. All right, these are the grip screw bushings, and please do not take these out of your frame. All right, there is some really, really fragile, very tiny threads going on inside on the other end of these bushings where it screws into your frame. And you just don't want to be in the habit of taking off the bushings. So if they never have to come off, they don't need to come off, then don't take them off. All right, the only exception there would be if you're moving from the standard grips to the slim grips. You're going to have to probably change out your bushings, but really you want to leave these in here if and whenever possible. All right, so now we're going to take out the mainspring housing pin here. All right. All right, it helps to have it on elevation like that because the pin is going to fall out and you're good. Okay, and I like to just cock the hammer to help let this go. Now, on something you don't know and you've never taken apart or something like this, you may or may not trust, you want to kind of do this carefully. And that pin, you'll know when you're hammering this pin, it might fight you. All right, and the reason for that is there is an incredible amount of pressure going on in here because of the mainspring that's inside here. And this little itty bitty pin, which inserts on this side, all right, that's holding back that plunger right there. And I've seen some builds where that pin is missing and they kind of carefully put it back together. So the second you hit that mainspring, all right, it's going to be under an incredible amount of pressure. You'll know when the second you knock out that pin. All right, and let's see if I can. So that's why when I hammer, I like to just leave it in there, and you'll know because the punch or whatever you're using it's gonna hit back, and the second you let that go, it's gonna fly. All right, so just be careful on something you don't know. Generally, if you do see the pin in the mainspring housing and you see it's there, all right, then you should have nothing to worry about, but just be careful on that. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna get the hammer strut in that notch inside the inside of the grip safety. All right, we're gonna cock it. And then now we're going to rotate the safety up and down. And this is another area because your safety plunger spring, all that stuff may shoot out this way. So you got to be kind of careful. I like to guard that. Usually there's a kink in the spring. All right, just like that. You can kind of see the spring is a little bit kinked like that in the middle to make sure that it's not just going to fly out on you. But some are not like that. Okay, so you never know what's going on in there. All right, and I'm gonna drop the hammer. We're gonna take off the grip safety. All right, good news is I don't really see any rust issues in here. That's good. All right, we're gonna get out our trigger spring here. And this spring actually has multiple functions, but we're not gonna worry about that for now. And now we get out the hammer. Ooh, that's pretty gummy. That's like greasy. Okay. And then the hammer comes out, and kind of like the barrel link, we're going to be checking out this hammer strut and see if there's any issues with that pin. Not that it really matters because, like I said, we're going to be replacing it. But I like to check out so these are the hammer hooks. I'm going to point to them. All right, right here. All right, that is where all of your engagement happens. And then now this is your half cock up here, the top one, and this is where your trigger actually comes from. All right, your trigger pull. This is your hammer hooks. And I was hoping I wasn't going to see this grinded down. Some of the old school dudes would grind down the half cock. Again, Not something I recommend to disable safety features on the gun. Don't. All right, the half cock is there to help you if your hammer hooks slip on your sear engagement. All right, so I'm glad to see the half cock. And I should have tested that, but you could have put it on half cock just to test. But glad to see it's there. Not that it matters because it's going away. Okay, so now we're gonna take out, now all this stuff at this point, it's kind of greasy, gooey, and not the biggest greasy fan. I'm wondering if this is gonna drop out. It should just drop out, the sear and disconnector. All right, not sure what that is. Okay, that was kind of weird. A little flake of maybe carbon or something. All right, now we're just kind of checking these parts out. Sorry, the lighting kind of sucks. You should see what I'm doing right now. I got like 3 different lights doing crazy stuff. This is all just kind of greasy. What's interesting is the disconnector actually looks like a real disconnector, not a metal injection molded part. I don't see a seam line even on the inside of this cutout. That's cool. Sear also looks real. I don't see any injector marks or anything. So that's kind of, and that's a cool thing, guys. You're going back in time to an older time of 1911 production, at least at Springfield. And it looks like I don't see any metal injection molded stuff here. The only thing is this looks cast because you got that seam line. You see that halfway through, which I don't even care about stuff like this. And actually, the mainspring housing itself, I don't see any obvious casting marks unless they cleaned them off. So that might be real as well. Interesting. And the safety looks not injection molded either. That's interesting. So this is kind of a side note. I mean, I know I'm replacing the safety and the hammer, all this stuff, but it is cool to see that. We're going back to an older time of production before they were metal injection molding stuff. This is fine by me, and this actually is not a factory part that came on the gun. This is a upgraded grip safety, at least for the time. But the stuff like this, the sear and disconnector, you, at least in my opinion, you really don't want that to be metal injection molded. You want that to be machine steel. Okay, let's deal with this insane mag release here. So, I mean, logically, this is going to have to come off to clear through the other side. That's kind of an interesting deal here. I don't see any evidence of Loctite. It must have just been, I don't know. Okay. Let me see if I... All right, so what I'm talking about, guys, I had to stop the video just to make sure I get the right screwdriver bit for this, but you're going to insert it in there. You're going to push on the mag release a little bit. You're going to find that sweet spot and twist left. Okay, there we go. There it is. I'm going to go ahead and... Now, this is under pressure. Yet again, we got another part that's under pressure. All right, and I'm going to push down, twist right, and get ready to receive. There we go. Receive that spring. All right. Nothing spooky about this except for the fact that it's entirely spooky with this whole arrangement. I'm sorry, but that's going to get nixed. All right, now the trigger should just come out. And while we're here, I'm kind of checking the trigger track to see if there's any binding or weirdness. So it looks like that's freely moving. I think the trigger is going to get replaced as well. And got the over travel screw in there. All right, this is looking a little dicey. You see, I don't... Yeah, it's going to go either way. And now you can't really get this on camera as well. I'm just looking inside the frame. I don't see any rust or spookiness. It just needs a good cleaning. Now something we're going to do, we're going to check the ejector and we're going to check the safety plunger tube right here. And I'm basically looking to see if we got any wobble or jiggle or looseness. You can also, a cool test is to put some oil on it and then just kind of move it around and see if you see the oil moving around. But it looks like the plunger tube is staked in there well. And then the ejector... Now in this case, it actually has the old school ejector pin right here, which actually interfaces on the front leg of the ejector and actually keeps it pinned into the frame, which I like. And a lot of modern 1911s, they're starting to kind of ditch that. They don't do that anymore as much, but it's good to see that. Let's see, comparison piece. All right, so my ejector is a little bit more extended. It actually started as a competition extended ejector, and I brought it down. But I'm not going to mess with the ejector yet because I want to do a test fire, and we are dealing with an interesting dynamic with that slide, that the ejection port is not lowered and flared. So inside of the frame looks good. You could see mine is just beat the hell. But that ejector, I'm not going to mess with it. You know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. All right. So overall, guys, this is the part one. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Again, we're going to be doing a target pistol for my dad. We're taking his 1911 he just purchased secondhand. And we're just going to be kind of revamping it a little bit. I can tell you right now, we're going to put some stuff on order. We're going to be doing an Ed Brown memory groove, beaver tail grip safety. That's going to happen. New trigger is going to happen. We're going to do a cylinder and slide, hammer and sear ignition kit. In terms of the slide, I think I'm going to see if I can ride dirty with this. I'm not going to have to lower and flare that, but we'll see. But we're going to be doing some nice fiber optic front. We're going to be doing a nice adjustable blacked out Bomar targets rear sight in the back. Extractor is probably going to stay. Firing pin can stay, but the firing pin spring is an immediate no-go. That needs to get changed out. This stuff is going in the trash. Sorry. Okay. And let's see what else is going on. Extended safety. So that's going to require some fitting. Side note on that. All right, there's some important stuff going on here with how this is supposed to interface on what. So it's not a simple matter of just dropping in a safety on a 1911. That is like a mandatory fit job. And you guys will see that coming down the pipe here. Grips. I'm going to replace the grips. And I'm going to go for the classic wooden look. I got some Coca-Colas I think I'm going to throw on there. Maybe some Rosewoods. We're going to check it out and see. But overall, guys, this is what we got. I'm going to say not bad. This is a good place to start from. But yeah, there's going to be a little bit of rebuilding and a little bit of modernizing. Not too much, but I do intend to keep the original Parkerized finish on this thing. Frame the slide. I don't know, guys. I'm going to have to test this out and see what we're doing on ejection and reliability, and accuracy as well once we put the Bomar sights on. But so far, I'm not convinced I'm going to be tightening that up. Now, keep in mind, guys, it's not going to be like a super match precision 2 inches at 50 yards 1911. That's not the goal. It's just a gun to go out there for him to go shoot, have fun with, and just punch holes in paper. But I don't want him dealing with any jams either. But I still want a decent amount of accuracy, so we'll see how it kind of shapes up. The slide is pretty sharp and squared off. If this was a carry gun, I'd be melting this down, taking a file and very carefully kind of knocking these edges down, but it's not a carry. I don't have to worry about a holster situation here, so I'm just going to leave that stuff. Extractor, probably going to refinish the back. But overall, guys, thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll have part 2 out. Interesting how they changed their marking over time, where they place stuff and their font. So I apologize. I'm kind of using this as a case study to compare old versus new quality control, I guess, or manufacturing. Anyway, guys, hopefully you enjoyed it. I look forward to working on this as time allows. I'm going to try the press on it. I think I'll probably end up dropping off the gun at the gunsmith and have him get the fiber optic and the Bomar going. Definitely need an Ed Brown rebuild kit on the pins. We're going to get probably a rebuild kit on all the springs just to get it done with. And the recoil spring, I failed to mention, is pretty slack. And it's a little wonky recoil spring. It's one of those expendable items over time. It just needs to get replaced. So anyway, that's what we're going to be doing. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And comment for questions. Thanks for watching.